Okay, so get ready because today we're going to dive into something kind of amazing.
Okay.
It's how Iceland drastically cut down on youth substance abuse.
Wow.
Yeah. And you might be thinking, Iceland?
Right.
Like, what's so special about them?
Yeah.
But trust me, by the end of this deep dive, you'll see why this little island nation is like the rock star of youth substance abuse prevention.
Yeah, it really is a remarkable turnaround story.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a few decades ago, Iceland had one of the worst youth substance problems in all of Europe.
Really?
And now fast forward to today, and they're practically at the bottom of the list.
Seriously?
Wow.
From worst to first, like, how is that even possible?
It's really quite amazing. They basically just ditched the old playbook of, scare tactics and lectures,
Right.
and they took a radical new approach, one that was built on data and community involvement.
So instead of talking at kids, they actually started talking with them
Exactly.
and figuring out what was really going on.
Exactly. And not just the kids.
Yeah.
They involved parents, teachers, community leaders, everyone.
Wow.
They understood that to create lasting change, it requires a holistic approach.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. We've got all this research and firsthand accounts from this program called Planet Youth, which is based on this Icelandic model, and it all points to some pretty incredible results.
It really does.
So where do we even start with unpacking all of this?
Well, let's imagine this for a second.
Okay.
It's the 1990s,
Okay.
and Iceland is facing this escalating youth substance abuse crisis.
Right.
They're pouring resources into education programs, but nothing seems to be working.
Yeah. I remember those Just Say No campaigns.
Yes.
We had them here too.
Yeah,
Didn't really seem to stop anyone.
exactly. And that's kind of what they realized too.
Yeah.
So Iceland decided to take a step back and let the data guide them.
Okay.
They started by collecting all sorts of information about their young people, what they did in their free time, how connected they felt to their families and communities, their exposure to risk factors, you name it.
So it's like they were doing their own deep dive,
Exactly.
just like us, but on an entire nation's youth.
Precisely. They weren't afraid to get granular with the data.
Wow.
And what they discovered was that environmental factors played a much bigger role than anyone had realized.
Environmental factors? What do you mean by that?
It wasn't just about telling kids to just say no to drugs and alcohol. It was about creating an environment where they had compelling reasons to say yes to other things,
Okay.
like sports arts, spending time with family,
You're right.
things that fostered a sense of belonging and purpose.
Okay, so instead of focusing on the problem itself, substance abuse, they shifted their attention to building up all these positive alternatives.
Yes.
Huh. It sounds pretty intuitive when you put it like that.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where things get really interesting,
Yeah.
because the solutions they came up with weren't exactly rocket science.
Yeah, what's so fascinating about this is that they really focused on strengthening what we call protective factors.
Okay.
So these are those elements in a young person's life that act as buffers against risky behaviors.
Okay, so like what kinds of things are we talking about here? Give me some examples.
Well, think of it this way.
Okay.
If a kid has a strong support system, feels connected to their community, and has access to healthy activities,
Yeah. Yeah.
they're far less likely to turn to drugs or alcohol as a way to cope or belong.
So it's about creating a world where those substances just aren't that appealing anymore
Exactly.
because there are so many other positive things going on.
Exactly. And the data backs this up.
Okay.
In Iceland, they saw a direct correlation between increased participation in organized activities and a decrease in substance use.
Wait, so you're telling me that something as simple as signing kids up for sports or after-school clubs can actually make a difference?
It's not just about keeping them busy, though, right?
Okay.
It's about providing them with opportunities to develop their talents, to build relationships with positive role models,
Right.
and to feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves.
And that sense of belonging, that's a powerful thing.
Absolutely. It's a fundamental human need.
Yeah.
And when those needs are met in healthy ways,
Yeah.
it significantly reduces the allure of risky behaviors.
Okay, so let's talk specifics now.
Yeah.
What were some of the concrete things that Iceland did to make this happen?
Sure.
I mean, they actually implemented these protective factors on like a national scale, right?
They did, and this is where those data-driven decisions really come into play.
Oh.
For example, they found that a significant amount of teenage drinking was happening late at night
Yeah.
during unsupervised hours.
So what did they do? Just tell kids to go to bed early?
Well, they did implement curfews,
Okay.
but it wasn't about punishment.
Right.
It was about shifting social norms. By making it the expected thing for kids to be home at a certain hour, they effectively reduced opportunities for unsupervised gatherings, where risky behaviors were more likely to occur.
Interesting. So instead of saying, don't drink because it's bad,
Right.
they created an environment where drinking was less likely to happen in the first place.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And they didn't stop there.
Okay.
They also significantly increased funding for organized activities, sports, arts, music, you name it.
Wow.
And they made a concerted effort to make these activities affordable and accessible to everyone, regardless of their background.
That's great. Wow. So they really went all in on this whole creating a better environment thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of brilliant when you think about it. Instead of just focusing on the symptoms, they address the root causes.
Yeah, and the results speak for themselves. But
Yeah.
here's the thing that makes the Icelandic model so compelling.
Okay.
It's not about imposing a one-size-fits-all solution.
You're right.
It's about providing a framework that communities can adapt to their own unique contexts.
And that's where Planet Youth comes in, right?
Yeah,
They're the ones taking this model global.
Exactly. Planet Youth provides communities with the tools and the support they need to implement their own versions of the Icelandic model.
Wow.
They help them to collect data, identify their specific risk and protective factors,
Okay.
and develop targeted interventions.
So it's like they're giving communities the power to become their own solutions architects.
I love that analogy.
Yeah,
It's about empowerment, not imposition.
you're right.
And it's been incredibly effective.
Yeah.
We're seeing communities all over the world achieve significant reductions in youth substance use by adopting this approach.
That's amazing. It really shows you that positive change is possible,
It does.
even when it comes to something as complex as substance abuse.
Absolutely. And it highlights the importance of community-based solutions.
Yeah.
What works in Reykjavik might need some tweaking to be effective in rural Kentucky
Right.
or bustling Buenos Aires.
Scores.
But the underlying principles, strengthening those protective factors, creating healthy environments,
Yeah.
and empowering communities,
Mm.
those are universal.
So what does this all mean for our listeners?
That's a great question.
What's the takeaway message here?
I think the biggest takeaway is this.
Okay.
We don't have to accept youth substance abuse as an inevitability.
Yep.
The Icelandic model, and by extension Planet Youth,
Yeah.
demonstrates that by shifting our focus from individual blame to collective action,
Okay.
and from reactive measures to proactive prevention, we can create a world where young people have the support and opportunities they need to thrive.
It's a message of hope and possibility.
It is.
And I have to say, after diving deep into this topic, I'm feeling pretty inspired.
Me too.
How about you?
Absolutely. It's a reminder that even seemingly small changes,
Yeah.
like creating more opportunities for kids to get involved in their communities or strengthening those parent-school partnerships,
Yeah.
can have a ripple effect on entire generations.
So if you're listening to this and feeling even the slightest bit curious about how these ideas could be applied in your own community, I encourage you to check out the Planet Youth website. They have a ton of resources, case studies, and even information on how to get involved.
Yeah.
Who knows, maybe you'll be the one to spark a movement in your own backyard.
Here, remember, change starts with a single step,
Wow.
a single conversation,
Yeah.
a single community willing to say, we can do better.
Beautifully said. And on that note, thanks for joining us on this incredibly eye-opening deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration into the world of ideas and solutions.
See you then.